Hello viewers, in this module we will learn about the noise pollution, restriction of noise pollution, causes, effects and some preventive measures to control the same. We will also see about certain noise control mechanisms and the noise control instruments which are used in order to control the noise pollution. So after listening to this video, you should be able to define and list the sources of noise pollution, describe their effects on the environment and human health, and also explain some control measures. Now if we take the noise pollution, all activities, whether it is domestic, industrial or the commercial, they produce noise. Especially in a country like ours, where we have very noisy, even cultural things, we have the cultural and other religious processions which also produce noise. So certain amount of noise is okay, but then when they exceed a certain amount, even the honking on the roads, the vehicular and the noise, the traffic, when our vehicles are getting stuck in any kind of a traffic pollution or congestion, then we normally honk. So do you think that honking of our vehicles is going to make our vehicles to move faster or go further? No, it's not the same. So this is actually, we need to bring about a change in the attitude and the behavior and also our thinking, that we need to actually stay patient during those times, and the healthy environments generally will give rise to a healthy living. So these days we are seeing that high amounts of noise is leading to a very early deafness and presbycusis, which are increasing majorly in the metro cities. It is causing pollution and degradation of the environment. So even the animals and the fauna living in the metro cities, they also are seeing certain reproductive changes and also certain other behavioral changes in order to mate or in their normal living. Deafness is also becoming common at a very young age because also of the use of loud instruments, for example the music instruments and also the electronic apps. Let us now go on to understand certain definition and concepts. Noise actually comes from a Latin word nausea, and noise pollution is nothing but an undesirable sound that causes uneasiness to the ear, and it can result in serious health hazards. Noise, in simple words, it can be defined as unwanted sound. So noise is something not pleasant to hear, it is not pleasant to our ears, and that is why we call it as noise. But sound may be something pleasant to our ears. It could be the chirping of the birds, it could be the natural sound from the waterfalls, it could be somebody singing or even somebody who has a very nice and sweet voice. But noise is something which is unacceptable, which is not very pleasant for our ears. So that is why there is a difference between noise and sound in simple terms. Now sound and noise a little more in detail. Sound is a compression waveform that travels through matter. It can travel in water, steel, air, but not through vacuum. It is characterized by amplitude, frequency, velocity and wavelength. When sound hits an object, it vibrates. Just as when you put a stone into the water body, you can see the ripples of that is created in the water body. The same way, when the sound hits an object, you can see those tympanic vibrations. You can hear the tympanic vibrations, and that will create a vibration. So noise is produced by fluctuations in the air pressure, includes sound and vibration. Loudness. So the loudness of any sound or noise, this is measured by decibel, and it is depicted as dB. The pitch or the frequency. So that is why when anybody sings, even when you have to purchase a musical instrument like the tambura or the electronic shrudi, then we also see the pitch of a person as to what pitch the person is able to sing. Is it 5, is it 6 or 4.5? So pitch or the frequency, this is measured in hertz, Hz, and the frequency and the noise can be of the higher or the lower frequency. A normal adult can hear within the range between 16 to 20,000 Hz. Below 16 Hz are infra-audible, and above 20,000 Hz are ultrasonic, and that is why there are certain animals, for example the bats, which can listen to these ultrasonic or the Hertz, which is not audible to a human being. The noise which is between the range of 2000 to 8000 Hz, these are most annoying. The World Health Organization has fixed 45 decibels as the safe limit for the noise in the cities. Now we come on to the sources of noise pollution. So every day we hear different types of noise. They can be gentle as the rustling of the leaves or the chirping of the birds, or even as loud as your thunder, lightning and waves rushing in the oceans. So noise can be natural from the examples that I have cited above, and they can also be human induced. Most of us are exposed to high levels of noise every day. We travel in our metros, we travel in the local trains in the metro cities like Delhi or Bombay or Calcutta, and we can see that how this is directly affecting our health. Noise may be produced from various sources, and they can be classified into the indoor and the outdoor sources. Let us now understand the sources in the following paragraphs. We have the indoor sources. These can include the noise produced from the radio, the television, or it could be from the lawn mowers or the electrical pump sets. We can have air coolers. We can also have the kitchen appliances like maybe the induction stoves or the mixies or the electronic grinders, the coffee grinders. All this can create the sources of sound from internal sources. Also, some of us have a habit of using the musical instruments and the DJ and all those systems at very high sound. So this can also be of a problem to us and also to our neighbors. The outdoor sources. Outdoor sources, they can include those from your traffic or from industrial activities, because sometimes these industrial activities, they cause a high level of sound, and that can actually damage even your eardrum. The automobile sound is also very annoying. The rail traffic, so those who have their offices or their houses near the rail and even the railway quarters, they are really affected by the noise of the trains. The aeroplanes also, even while taking off and landing, the aeroplane and from the aerodromes, we can have a large amount of sound. The farm machineries and tractors, that is also, they also create a lot of sounds. Pump sets, generators, and also certain festive moments outside. All these are some of the outdoor sources. The noise can also be classified upon the source from where it is produced. The domestic sources, so this includes from internally, that is from residential areas, the telephones, the mixer grinders, the radios, television sets, computers or the music speaker systems and so on. In certain cases, dogs can also be very annoying. They can keep barking the whole day and cause noise pollution for us and for our neighbors. Social events. So these include the places of worship, marriage receptions, firecrackers, political rallies and so on. Lastly, we also have the industrial activities. So these are the noise produced from various industrial and construction sites. The most annoying sources are from the compressors, the generators, furnaces, looms, grinding mills, the releasing valves, which are all used in industries, and you can have, even in the industries, they could be open or the closed shed. So 80 to 120 hertz decibel noise level is most common to these units, and they can be disastrous. The workers in any industry, they can experience a high level of noise for more than 8 hours per day. So they can have a very permanent hearing damage. Then from the transportation, this includes the noise that is produced from the aircraft, the train, road transport, and in the urban areas, it is really hazardous and disastrous. Continuous exposure to this traffic, they can accelerate the age-induced deafness. The average noise level, if you see in the metros of Delhi, Mumbai and Calcutta, it is 95 decibels. And New Delhi, the capital of India, it is one of the most noisiest cities in India. So here, the noise levels can go even above 100 decibels. And the recommended guidelines for the residential zones is between 50 to 55 decibels. So this causes the same way the parking also, there are certain problems. So there is congestion, rows over parking and frequent fights over the neighboring noise levels. There are also certain other noise, for example, the continuous hearing of music and listening on the mobile phone, they can at high volumes. This can also cause hearing loss and ear damage, and this is prevalent among the present day generation among the youth. Now coming on to the effects of the human health, effects of noise on human health. So here we have seen from the different sources how noise is produced, and do you think that all this can have some effects on our health? So unknowingly it is actually entering our system, and slowly it is degrading our hearing system. There can be stress and headache. So you have often seen that when you are caught up in a traffic jam, or when you are in a function, or even a religious function, and there is so much of loud noise or music, then you develop certain headache and you are restless and you have certain stress. So stress, headache, then high blood pressure. The high BP is also related to a very high amount of noise. There is sleeplessness. Then there is also ringing in the ears. That is, you feel as if there is some sound which is going on in the ears continuously. There can be ear pain. Then high level of noise can also create digestive. It can make your gastrointestinal tract secrete more amount of the digestive juices. So the digestive and immune system disorders are also seen. Presbycusis, which is the advancement of your age-related deafness. Then there is aggressive behavior among people. So even among children, among youth, when there is more noise, then they tend to behave aggressively, and there are certain psychosocial problems. Then the noise effects can be categorized as non-auditory and auditory effects. Auditory, when there is a neural hearing loss, that is, it is confined only to the auditory part or the hearing part. There is damage to the auditory nerves, there is sensory hearing loss, there is a damaged eardrum. Non-auditory means that is the effects are seen on the other parts of your system. It could be psychological. Psychologically, a person may be affected due to noise. He is not able to concentrate into his study or whatever he wants to do in his work. Physiological effects, that is manifested in your various organs. You can have a high blood pressure. There can be vertigo where there is dizziness. Due to noise, a person can have, he can faint and he can be restless. There can be agitation. Then you can also have gastrointestinal or duodenal ulcers. They can also have a damage to respiratory and digestive systems. So as we have seen that noise effects can be auditory and non-auditory, and it can affect the entire human system. Do you think noise affects the flora and the fauna or other organisms other than the human beings? Because man is always human-centric. We only think about ourselves. We are quite selfish in nature, but that should not be the case. We should also be bothered about our fellow creatures, because the earth is for all of us, all the beings. So mating signals and warning cries are being threatened. The entire animal species are being displaced from their ecosystems. So if you see even in the metros, you see that the pigeons, they are coming and disturbing the residential areas, because human beings have actually taken their areas. The flats and the buildings are being made in such places. The birds and the parrots and also the pigeons, they have been displaced from their natural habitats, because the human beings have built their flat or their villas or houses in those natural environments where they once used to nest and used to thrive. So that is also another problem. And then because of the noise, the birds need to chirp louder and sing longer in these polluted areas in order to call for their mating cries. The feeding and the breeding patterns are also disturbed, and this all leads to a lowered reproduction. Then the military sonar, this can also have adverse effects on the dolphins in the oceans and marine environments. In poultry, there has been experiments which show that there is reduced egg production. There are also detrimental effects on the cows, because the cows also, in the very noise polluted areas, the amount of the milk that is produced is less compared to where the cow milking is more in the rural area, where it is very calm and pristine environment is noticed. In the same way, there are also detrimental effects on the reproduction of plants, and seed growth is also being threatened. So we have seen that noise is not only detrimental to man, but also to the plants and to the animals. So now we can see how to control and prevent noise pollution. The general public must be aware of the problem and the seriousness of this noise pollution problems, which has to be tackled by us. Now they can be achieved through media or community gatherings, through the newspapers, awareness. Society and people have the ability to make the greatest change concerning such kinds of pollution. So noise reduction or mitigation measures are also very important measures. Some of the control measures can be adopted, for example, in the vehicles or in the machine design, and also in, for example, if there are buildings, you can have the soundproof buildings. Let us now see how to control the domestic noise. So in the domestic noise, most of us, we have seen that our residences have been made as soundproof by using heavy curtains on the windows, or putting rugs, carpets on the floors, and also acoustical tiles on the ceilings and the walls. In the same way, we can also control the noise pollution by controlling the noise from the old vehicles. So old vehicles should go off the road and they should be replaced. The use of less horns, or even the horn, the sound of the horn also should be minimized and less. So maybe the modern vehicles, they can also think of digitizing the same by using maybe the colored signs or other mechanisms, so that the sound is off the road. The proper oiling of the engines, making new or upgraded roads, because even the bumping of the roads and that can also create certain sounds. The construction of one-ways and bridges or flyovers, they can regularize the traffic so that there is smooth flow of traffic and people don't honk. Proper functioning of the traffic lights, and this can also help in reducing the noise. The same way, we can also have some vegetation buffer zones in different parts of the city. That is why in most of the cities we have seen that in the central part of the road to a certain height, we have certain plant buffers or the plant vegetation that is being kept, which can also take up some pollutants and also reduce the noise. So the green buffer or the green noise belt is also very important. Noise from the railways can be controlled by changing the track. So maybe new tracks, they will change the sound pattern, designing new bridges, and also the use of electric locomotives. Just like now we are not using the steam engines which are liberating so much of the carbon into the atmosphere. We can use the electronic locomotives and the soundproof railway engines which can give lesser sound. Then we can also control the industrial noise. In many of the companies and industries, they have the sound absorbers and acoustic tiles, silencers in engines and home appliances. The workers at the factories, especially, they need to wear the ear plug and ear muffs to decrease the amount of the noise levels. Otherwise, it would be very disastrous for their working environment. So noise measurement is a first step for applying the noise control technology. Let us now learn about some noise instruments that can measure the noise levels. The first one is the sound level meter. This is an instrument which indicates the sound pressure levels in the audible range. A sound level meter, this consists of a microphone and an electronic circuit that includes an attenuator, amplifier, a weighting network or filters, and an indicator meter or displaying unit. Impulse meter. This noise lasts a fraction of a second, so that those are produced by hammer blows, for example. So that is just a fraction of a second, and they can be measured with an impulse meter. And the sound level meter will be too sluggish in order to indicate these peak levels for this noise. So that is why impulse meters are used. The frequency analyzers are also used. These are instruments that can allow separating the main component of the signal by dividing the frequency range of interest into smaller frequency bands using a set of graphics. Then we have the graphic recorders. The graphic record of a sound level is obtained by connecting a sound level meter to a graphic level recorder that plots the sound pressure level as a function of time on a moving chart paper. So just like we have an ECG, in the same way this is also connected to a chart paper, and we can actually see the graph or the printout that is coming out, and we can see the level of the sound which is recorded on this chart. Then we have the noise dosimeters. This not only tells us about the sound levels but also the amount of time a worker is exposed at various levels of noise. Now let us see some noise control technologies, especially in the buildings. So damping, these are vibration absorbers, then there are monolayer absorbing linings, sound absorbers or the silencers. These are very important in the buildings they are used. They diminish the airborne sound propagation in ducts when the gases escape or expand. Acoustical enclosures are also there. For example, in many of the studios, they use this acoustical enclosures. They are provided to the noisy machines and also in the working machinery which provide lot of sound. Here also we find the sheets that are metal lined inside with an acoustical material. So it will prevent this noisy sound from going out. Then there are acoustical barriers or shield, which is acoustical treatment of the walls and the ceilings. Then we have the acoustical treatment of the walls and the ceilings. So the sound energy is absorbed when it contacts a porous material, and it is usually absorbed. 50 to 90% of the incident sound energy will be absorbed depending on the frequency and also the angle of incidence. The acoustic materials that are used, they may be absorbent fibers, glass or mineral wool, and some hard but porous plaster like some materials. So since noise creates stress and they can lead to other health problems, the industries, governments and the citizens all around the world, they are working together to reduce such noise levels. In countries such as Austria and Belgium, roadways are being constructed with material called as a whisper concrete, and they reduce the noise level by the 5 decibels. Sweden also, they have developed the road surface made of pulverized rubber that can also reduce the noise levels to even as less as the 10 decibels. So far we have understood and explained the different sources of noise pollution, the effects noise pollution has on the human system, on the flora, on the fauna, And now we have also seen about certain control measures. Now let us see certain legislations referring to the noise. Law is a regulator to control pollution, and different countries have the different legislations. And in India, until the enactment of our Environment Protection Act that came out in 1986, there was no direct legislation to tackle this noise. And under the law of torts, if a noise affects a person's comfort, then it would amount to nuisance, which is actionable and it is objectionable. So you can see that a noise should not even affect the person's comfort. A noise is considered as a public nuisance under the section 268 of the Indian Penal Code, and thus it is a criminal liability of a person relating to illegal omission resulting in common injury. The Noise Pollution Regulation and Control Rules, this came out in 2000, and the rules regulate noise levels in the industrial setting as 75 decibels, in the commercial area as 65 decibel, the residential zones as 55, and also establish zones of silence 100 meters near the schools, courts and hospitals. So that is why even surrounding your aerodrome or the air tracks, normally the residences or the around the hospital or they are not being constructed there. Also, so certain legislations have come out that there should be a certain amount of space from the where one can construct from the aerodromes. So the rules also assign regulatory authority for these standards and to the local district courts, and no permission can also be granted for use of the public address system in the open after 10 p.m. and also before 6 a.m. so that it is not causing any problem to any person. In the same way, any person or organization who makes noise on amplified system, this is normally in the political rallies after 10 p.m. It would be actually violation of the law, and the person can be prosecuted under the provisions of the Environment Protection Act of 1986. Now this Noise Pollution Regulation and the Control Act was amended in 2017 by the Ministry of Environment and Forest on August 10th, 2017, and it has issued this thing. By this amendment, the state government shall take necessary steps to reduce the noise pollution and permit the use of the loudspeakers during night hours between 10 p.m. and 12 of midnight on or during any cultural, religious or festive occasion of a limited duration and not exceeding 15 days in all during a calendar year, and the concerned state governments or district authority in respect of its jurisdiction as authorized by the concerned state government shall generally specify in advance the number and particulars of the days on which such exemption should be operative. So this was given by the ministry, and so if such laws are actually implemented, then there would be a big change in the noise pollution levels in our country. And the summary of the whole lecture, we have seen the different sources, the effects of the pollutants, and also certain laws that are pertaining. But basically all this, the change and the behavior of a human being, of us, and in the attitude of every being, this is crucial for the change in the noise pollution levels in our environment, and we need to strive for totally noise free zones in our country, and that would definitely have a good impact for healthy living and healthy people in the country. Thank you.